Today's reading is Ezekiel, chapter 1, verses 1 to 14. I hope you enjoyed reading this opening passage of Ezekiel. And if you felt confused about what he was describing, that it was difficult to picture his vision, well, try reading on to the end of the chapter and see how much more confused you get. A number of artists have tried to depict this vision of Ezekiel's, but everyone will have their own image in their mind, and any picture you look at may not connect with the description. The vision has been described as fantastic, that is, beyond normality, bizarre and bewildering. There is an overall impression of grandeur and awe, but the details are elusive. I'm sure this is deliberate and intended. Ezekiel was granted a vision of God, or of great spiritual beings surrounding God, and the human eye and brain is simply not equipped to take this in or make sense of it. Putting it into words limits it even further. And it's no wonder if the words seem mysterious or contradictory even. Ezekiel is aware of the paucity of his human expression, and we can tell this by the number of times he qualifies his description. It's interesting to count these. Every time he says, "It was something like," or "it was as if," he means the nearest I can get is to call it a face or a fire, but that label isn't adequate really. Perhaps it's a bit like trying to tell a dream to someone else. Putting it into words diminishes it somehow. This really tells us how cautious we need to be about our image of God. Whatever picture I might have in my mind, that's not God. We find the same in other parts of Scripture. When the day of Pentecost is described in Acts, Luke says, "Something like flames of fire settled on each head, and a sound as if a rushing wind came through the room." It wasn't fire and wind, but, well, these are the closest words or images. The experience was really indescribable, or as the mystics would say, ineffable. The philosopher Wittgenstein said, "Whereof one cannot speak, thereof one must be silent." And some Christian mystics have taken this route of silence, since anything one says of God is so inadequate as to be possibly misleading. However, Ezekiel did speak and describe as best he could. The four living creatures were taken up in Revelation chapter 4, in the great vision of St. John, where he sees heaven opened and the worship surrounding the throne of God. The four living creatures were like, he said, an eagle, or like a lion, an ox, like a man. These have become, in Christian tradition, the symbols of the four evangelists, and they're depicted in a window in our cathedral near the southeast door. The great tapestry in Coventry Cathedral shows them surrounding the image of Christ, seated in glory. Ezekiel's vision has inspired our imagination through the ages. What can we take from this? It's risky to put it into words, since that's just like trying to describe an awe-inspiring vision, inadequate, doomed to failure perhaps. But my reflection is that the glory of God is greater, more mind-blowing than I can conceive of or can ever conceive of. If I find it mind-boggling to think about cosmology or astronomy, and I do, how much more should it blow my mind to think of God? And how much more should I be aware that my grasp, my understanding is so very small and inadequate? "No one has ever seen God," said John the Evangelist. "It is God the only Son, who is close to the Father's heart, who has made him known."